Chapter 1971. You must be my fate companions. Right. He unleashed forbid universe. Dragon Emperor perish. He swung the sea god's trident forward. It emitted a massive amount of golden radiance and an incomparably destructive aura that felt like it was about to pierce through the entire world. Where the light passed, everything in the surroundings collapsed. At that point, any attack upon Tang Wuling would be rendered useless. The Dragon Emperor Forbidden Law's fifth move would destroy everything else when it was unleashed. If it was unleashed outside the array, everyone including the 6 Shrek monsters, Arahang, and Sima Jinkai would not stand a chance and would be absolutely annihilated. The combination of the super divine weapon, the sea god's trident, and Dragon Emperor Forbidden Law was truly too terrifying. A rift appeared on the top of the array and a light shone through it. It was apparent that the rift was forcefully cut out by the Dragon Emperor perish. Even the combination of multiple domains was helpless when confronted by a real god-ranked attack like that. How could Tang Wuling let an opportunity like this pass? He flapped the golden wings on his back and unleashed the golden dragonflies. It burst out from the rift almost instantaneously. He wanted to escape the array first before he chose his next move. However, if Tang Wuling could see Yuna's expression, he would never have felt optimistic about breaking the array. In Yuna's eyes, the array that trapped Tang Wuling was a gigantic sphere with constantly distorting light. It was true that the array could not withstand the Dragon Emperor perish's power when Tang Wuling had an outburst. Then, the array swiftly transformed from a spherical shape to that of a bottle gourd. In other words, an additional sphere appeared above the original sphere array and both were tightly linked together. Yuna sensed that Tang Wuling had cut open the original array, and in the next moment, he bought his way into the other sphere. The original sphere fused upward rapidly and engulfed the new sphere. The array remained complete as before. The array's transformation of this array could simply be described as amazingly wondrous. In fact, Yuna felt that the array might have been developed with Tang Wuling as the potential target. That was indeed the case. The 6 Shrek monsters were closest to Tang Wuling. At this point, he was at god rank. The first thing that they thought of was to ensure that the array could hold Tang Wuling when they defected it. Otherwise, what was the point of the array? On the other hand, Tang Wuling had just gotten out from the array when he came head-on with countless dazzling starlights, distorted gravity, and the evil dragon's breath. What? You must be my fake companions, right? Tang Wuling could not help smiling bitterly and hastily endured it. His failure to charge out of the array came unexpectedly. However, he could still feel that the array was not perfect. The array was elegant, but its power was inadequate. Although the multiple domains had already been completed to a certain extent, they were merely combining and not truly fusing. It was still incapable of achieving the sublimation effect through fusion, so it was still incapable of blocking his Dragon Emperor Forbidden Law. I can't keep doing this with them anymore. Otherwise, what am I going to do later on? At the thought of this, Tang Wuling's eyes focused. He counted himself lucky that his companion's array had yet to be perfected. If they had adequate time, perhaps they could really create an array that could entrap him. Fortunately, they were his companions and he still had a trump card he had yet to use. Come. Tang Wuling shouted. He suddenly passed the sea god's trident from his right hand to his left while his left hand made a grasping gesture. A ghastly scene emerged. The evil dragons in the array that were attacking him suddenly disintegrated, successively dissipating within the violent distortion. The giant dragons had rapidly fused into streams of colored light that entangled one another in the array. Meanwhile, the entire array had also become shaky and unstable. A gold-red light shot out and came at Tang Wuling from all directions, as if it was trying to hinder him. What a waste that it came too late. The sea god's trident in Tang Wuling's left hand projected golden halos once again. The halos transformed and wrapped around the gold-red radiance. The array tried to struggle free by turning illusionary and distorting. Space-time transformed, attempting to filter out the indefinite storm. How could Tang Wuling allow them to have their way? His eyes flickered once and all the distortion had vanished in a split second. How could she be the only person capable of controlling time? Tang Wuling was equipped with time backtrack when he gained his very own spiritual domain back in those days. The gold-red radiance was destroyed by the golden halos, revealing a figure. It was the body Douluo Arahang. Meanwhile, the colorful light streams that formed after the evil dragons disintegrated had finally fused into a gigantic 9-colored saber. Tang Wuling made a grasping gesture with his right hand, and the saber reached him immediately. It was the Dragon Clan's power saber. He thrust the Dragon Clan's power saber forward, producing a ray of dazzling radiance. It was not a mere display but the fusion between him and Sima Jinkai. Poof. There was a soft heart and the array shook unsteadily for a moment. Another rift appeared, but Tang Wuling was not in a rush to break out this time. He swung the sea god's trident in his left hand gently. Clouds of light rippled within the array, making everything in the surrounding area look like an illusionary dream. A muffled grunt came from the interwoven space and time. The distortion of the area disappeared and Shishi's domain broke. The crystal clear starry sky was revealed once again. It was the Millennium Cloud. Roar. Tang Wuling raised his head and let out a dragon's roar. Purple gold radiance shot out from his eyes as he pointed the sea god's trident at the sky. In the next moment, the incredibly terrifying gold red radiance exploded from his body. It felt as if the dazzling radiance was making the sky and ground shake and collapse. The starry sky above him disintegrated inch by inch. All of it was annihilated under the illumination of the gold red radiance. It was forbid totality, Dragon Emperor Shine. It was the 7th move of the Dragon Emperor Forbidden Law. It was not a skill but an absolute ability. The partially formed array could no longer withstand it anymore when Tang Wuling went all out and unleashed his true powers on it. Boom. The array exploded. 7 silhouettes came tumbling out, and even the star chain disintegrated, turning into speckles of starlight that vanished into the sky. Other than Sima Jinkai, who had already transformed into the Dragon Clan's power saber in Tang Wuling's grasp, the rest of the 7 stumbled out in succession and scattered across the sky. Every single one of them was ghastly pale. Had Tang Wuling not contained the Dragon Emperor Shine's power at the final moment, some of them may have been injured severely. It was highly possible that a person whose defense was slightly weaker like Shu Shaoan could even be killed. Tang Wuling held the sea god's trident in one hand and the Dragon Clan's power saber in the other. He looked just like a descended sea god. His suit of golden dragon moonsong battle armor glistened with golden light and the gigantic wings on his back spread wide open. Determination and persistence emanated from his gaze. The illusionary shadow of vines emerged behind him, and the sky changed color once again. Blue-purple radiance filled the entire space instantaneously and enshrouded all 7 people that were blasted by the impact. Loud, piercing thunder shook the entire world. Even the satellite image was distorted. He had unleashed the Blue Emperor Forest Lightning Hell. The group that was just blasted away from the Dragon Emperor Shine's impact were incapable of controlling themselves. The Forest Lightning Hell had covered their bodies and struck them so ferociously that their forward battle armors activated self-protection mode automatically. Tang Wuling had no choice but to acknowledge that the forward battle armor's defense was so great that even his Forest Lightning Hell was incapable of breaking it. However, this was not the end yet. Light shadow flashed once. Tang Wuling had already taken the initiative to return to the body Douluo Arahang's side. Arahang was completely immobilized due to being bound by the golden halos from the god-ranked indefinite storm. Chapter 1972 Victory. The blue vines as clear as crystal lashed onto Arahang's body mercilessly. There was a loud crack, and Arahang's entire body convulsed. Despite the incredible endurance of his leak-proof golden body, his eyes rolled back. The electricity made him froth at the mouth, and he fainted instantaneously. Tang Wuling retracted the sea god's trident in his hand and grabbed Arahang's unconscious body before almost casually tossing him into the hands of the Dragon Empress Douluo Long Yeyu. Tang Wuling's silhouette flashed once again. The thunder gods whip lashed out, but this time it was targeted at Shishi. Although Arahang did not own battle armor, he had the most powerful defense of all of them. He was incapable of withstanding the thunder gods whip filled with elemental lightning calamity, let alone everybody else. The 6 Shrek monsters were whipped one after another, losing consciousness from the electrocution. Tang Wuling captured them one by one before tossing them to his allies at the side. They were caught by the 4 great limit Douluos. It was definitely a shocking scene to behold. The bodies of the numerous beasts watching in the air were twitching. A beast would encounter one lightning calamity every 100,000 years of cultivation. Passing the lightning calamity allowed the beast to live another 100,000 years and became even more powerful. However, the beast would die if it failed to withstand the process. Thus, these beasts with overcultivation bases of over 100,000 years were very familiar with the elemental lightning calamity. In their perception, being struck by Tang Wuling's thunder god's whip was not so different from crossing a calamity. All at once, they had a slightly fearful look in their eyes. It was one thing to judge Tang Wuling's capabilities, but it was another to confront him in real life and witness with one's eyes how formidable he was. The Dragon Clan's power saber in his right hand turned back into the Gale Saber demon Sima Jinkai. His eyes looked glazed and confused at first, but soon regained their clarity. He could not help being stunned for a moment upon seeing the situation before him. He muttered to himself, What happened to me?" Tang Wuling patted his shoulder. "It's fine now. You should return to the excellency side. Sima Jinkai's memories seemed to be in a process of recovery. He nodded while he pondered and then flew toward Long Yayu and Chen Xinji. Gu Yuna might be able to control the others, but the Dragon Clan's power saber Sima Jinkai was beyond her control. Although she was a part of the Dragon God, the Dragon Clan's power saber had a different status in the Dragon Clan. She had managed to gain control over Sima Jinkai temporarily, but the spiritual control left behind by Gu Yuna in his mind was spontaneously dissolved when Tang Wulin turned Sima Jinkai back into the Dragon Clan's power saber. This was one of Tang Wulin's trump cards that he wanted to reserve for the Soul Masters controlled by Gu Yuna. In order to finish off the battle as soon as possible, he had no choice but to reveal it at the start. The battle ended. Gu Yuna had been watching coldly from the sidelines without any intention of interrupting. She looked on as Tang Wulin ended the battle. Their eyes met and they could see the icy chill in each other's gaze. I've won. You can cut out one of your 5 terms now, Tang Wulin said in a deep voice. Gu Yuna calmly replied, you choose. Tang Wulin said without the slightest hesitation. The 4th term that you mentioned earlier was, all mankind soul masters will need to be executed. Mankind won't have any more soul masters in the future. Without soul masters, our soul beasts won't be hunted naturally. Remove this term. Gu Yuna squinted her eyes. Very well. Tang Wulin said, all right then, let's begin the second round. Send out your people. Gu Yuna acted as if she had already thought this through. With a wave of her right hand, a few figures flew out instantly. Tang Wulin could not help frowning ever so slightly when he saw their silhouettes. Those were still mankind's powerhouses with no exception. One of the men acting as a leader was the War God Hall's Hallmaster, a man who had reached God rank at one point in the past. He was the Skycrosser Duluo Guan Yue. Other than him, there was the Supreme Commander of the army, the Divine Brush Duluo Guanzi and also the Blood God Army's regimental commander, the Bright Mirror Duluo Zhang Wanyu. In addition, there was the ferocious Duluo Dong Xian, who was also a limit Duluo. They were all controlled by Gu Yuna. The remaining few were Tang Wulin's close acquaintances. They were the quasi-god ranked powerhouses, the Titan Duluo Yuan and Zenshin, the Heavenly Wild Duluo Yuan and Tiandang, and also the Keeling Duluo Tongyu. They were the 7 great limit Duluos. Compared to the first round, the lineup sent out by Gu Yuna was undoubtedly even more powerful. These were 7 astounding limit Duluos. 2 of them were quasi-gods, and the rest had all been renowned for many years. They were all the people that walked tall on the continent. That being the case, Tang Wulin felt slightly relieved when he saw these 7 being sent out. After all, the Azure Ox Python Demine and the Titan Giant Ape Hermine were not in the lineup of the second round. Although he had never truly engaged in a battle with them, Tang Wulin was well aware that these 2 uncles were gods in the past, but their cultivation bases were lower due to the plane of suppression. Now that the suppression had loosened, it was highly possible that they had already returned to god rank to a certain extent. If that was the case, it would be a very difficult battle that he would have great difficulty winning. Fortunately, the situation was not that bad. He felt that if his opponents were only the 7 great limit Duluos, it may not necessarily be harder than the previous round. The 7 great limit Duluos were in a daze, and they arranged themselves in a horizontal line before Tang Wulin. Tang Wulin took a deep breath and nodded toward them, but there was no response from the 7 Duluos. Gu Yuna looked at Tang Wulin and said, begin then. Tang Wulin squinted. Go ahead. Before his voice died away and the 7 great limit Duluos could make a move, Tang Wulin moved first. It came as a surprise to almost everyone. Tang Wulin's silhouette flashed swiftly as he flapped the wings on his back. He did not rush to attack them but fell back as quick as lightning. He had reappeared a few thousands of meters away almost in an instant. Why was he distancing himself? In many people's view, Tang Wulin's strength lay in close combat. Putting himself at a distance would only allow the 7 great limit Duluos to attack him with ease and utilize their most effective abilities. He had made an inadvisable decision. However, they realized why Dragon Emperor Duluo chose to do so after seeing his next move. A large, pink flower bloomed on Tang Wulin's back while a green gold soul ring emerged on his body. Tang Wulin's body began devouring and absorbing all sorts of elemental energy particles in the air like a fountain. He was like a whale inhaling water, absorbing the particles at an incomparable speed. He unleashed to devour the world. It had already been a very long time since Tang Wulin last utilized this ability. This was because he was capable of relying on his self-healing ability to replenish his cultivation base in an ordinary battle. This battle was different. He did not have any chance to recover during the array earlier. He had used a few powerful skills consecutively and exhausted himself. Moreover, this was only the second battle. There was no doubt that the opponent for the final battle would be the Silver Dragon Princess Gu Yuna. Hence, he chose to replenish himself to a certain extent at the start of the second battle. In the distance, rich life force surged toward them from the eternal tree following the manifestation of Devour the World. Under Tang Wulin's guidance, it began fusing with him. A layer of glistening green radiance misted the area around Tang Wulin's body at once. His vital signs and aura were elevating like an explosion. The beasts had a change of expression upon witnessing the scene. As they saw it, Tang Wulin was not a worthy opponent for Gu Yuna. It was not that they thought Golden Dragon King was inferior to Silver Dragon King, but there were a few crucial factors. Firstly, Tang Wulin had yet to fuse with all of the Golden Dragon King's powers. The final 2 layers of Golden Dragon King seals had yet to be unlocked. On the other hand, Gu Yuna was almost done fusing with all the powers inside her, although she was still not at her peak Silver Dragon King state. That was due to being affected by the plane. Chapter 1973 Divine Brush. Secondly, Gu Yuna had the Dragon God Core with her after all. Even though she and Tang Wulin each represented a part of the Dragon God, she could not fuse herself completely with the Dragon God Core yet. However, the Dragon God Core's power was clearly still present. Moreover, it was within Gu Yuna's control. The Dragon God Core was not only effective in restoring her consumption, but also in elevating her. Hence, the beasts were under the assumption that Tang Wulin was no match for Gu Yuna. In a one-on-one battle, Tang Wulin would not stand a chance of winning. They realized that their assessment was perhaps inaccurate when they witnessed Tang Wulin mobilizing the life force of the eternal tree in the distance. It was the Douluo continent after all and not some other place. As the grandson of the Lord of the Plane, he received the plane's providence and also the support from the life force of the eternal tree. Tang Wulin was not any weaker than Gu Yuna when it came to self-healing. If he could mobilize the eternal tree to replenish himself, then it would be difficult to tell who would win the battle between the both of them. At the thought of this, Tian had no choice but to respect Gu Yuna's decision. She was going to use the first 2 rounds of the battles to exhaust Tang Wulin and simultaneously affect his state of mind, so she would stand a better chance of winning the final battle later. He anticipated watching Gu Yuna kill Tang Wulin. She would then devour his Golden Dragon King's power so she could fuse with the Dragon God Core. In this way, the Dragon God would return to the mortal world once again. It would not be an issue at all to rebuild the Divine Realm based on the Dragon God's God King ranked cultivation base in the past. Now that Tang San was not around and the Divine Realm had vanished, who else could stop the return of the Dragon God? As the Silver Dragon King, Gu Yuna's issue was not only had she inherited the Dragon God's ability to control the elements, she had also inherited the Dragon God's positive emotions simultaneously. The positive emotions caused her to be extremely kind-hearted. In reality, Gu Yuna had never killed a human other than the evil Soul Masters. Tian was most concerned with her willingness to kill Tang Wulin at the final juncture. For this reason, he kept reminding Gu Yuna on various occasions. Naturally, the 7 great limit Duluos sensed that Tang Wulin was healing his powers. They had even richer combat experiences. A powerhouse like the ferocious wolf Douluo had fought and killed to achieve his current status. The 7 great limit Duluos spearheaded an offensive at Tang Wulin without the slightest hesitation. The divine brush Douluo Guanzi raised his right hand and conjured a huge, white brush about 1.2 meters in length. 9 soul rings rose from underneath his feet at the same time. In the past, the supreme commander of the 3 armies did not make a single move even when he led the armies to fight against the abyssal plane. At present, however, his target was Tang Wulin. The divine brush Douluo Guanzi swung his huge brush in the air. It took only a split second for him to sketch the outline of a red bird. In the next moment, a resonant phoenix's cry was heard. The red bird sketched out by him had come alive. It charged straight toward Tang Wulin. A peculiar scene emerged. The red bird grew larger as it flew over. It turned into a gigantic fire phoenix with a majestic aura and threw itself at Tang Wulin. The creature out of a void was precisely the divine brush Douluo's ability. His ability was exceedingly rare amongst soul masters. When he first made a name for himself during his younger years, he was reputed to be one of the most powerful assault type soul masters. He relied on the divine brush to bring any creature to life and attributed it with various powers. Unleashing this ability was rather exhausting, but it was almost flawless. His biggest fear was confronting the agility type soul masters. Also, he was not skilled in close combat. However, he was certainly the most powerful soul master in fighting long-range battles as well as controlling the battlefield. Otherwise, he could not possibly be the successor of his clan. The fire phoenix arrived. A dragon's roar was heard coming from Tang Wulin's body. Suddenly, the golden dragon bore out of his body and charged straight at the fire phoenix. The golden Dragon and the Fire Phoenix were entangled, fighting each other ferociously. It was precisely the Gold Song. Following Tang Wuling's cultivation base's elevation to God rank, the Gold Song had also evolved. Although it had yet to achieve the same God rank, its fighting capacity was on par with an ordinary limit Douluo. The golden scales that covered its entire body were clearly discernible, akin to the scales of a real giant dragon. It was fearless when confronted by the blazing hot flames from the Fire Phoenix's body. It bit and tore at the Fire Phoenix until the flames on the Fire Phoenix's body were soon extinguished. The divine brush Douluo got started while the other 6 great limit Douluos were not idle either. The distance of a few kilometers would be covered in the blink of an eye for people of their cultivation bases. The father and son team, Yuan and Zenshin and Yuan and Tiandang, were charging at the front. They unleashed the Titan Divine Punch and blasted it straight at Tang Wuling. They had cultivated the skill for so many years. Although they were incapable of innovating the Titan Divine Punch like how Yuan and Yui fused hers with the original Cloud Vortex Divine Punch, they were better in the sense of understanding its profundity. They condensed their tyrannical and ruthless soul power with their soul skill. The 2 Titan Divine Punches, akin to 2 giant hammers, occupied the whole space in the surroundings, which coerced Tang Wuling to fight them. Tang Wuling squinted his eyes. He was well aware that it was going to be a tough battle. Hence, he did not have the slightest intention to dodge. He braced it with his fists and utilized an ability which he had not used in many years. It was the Golden Dragon Source to Heaven. It was the first move he learned in the Scarlet Dragon 9 moves from the Scarlet Dragon Duel in the past. Tang Wuling had relied on this move once to spar with many of Shrek Academy's powerhouses. Amidst the agitated dragon's roar, both sides collided into one another brazenly. Loud, violent booms set off a mighty energy storm caused the limit Dueluos charging forward to stop for a moment. Yuan and Zenshin and Yuan and Tiandang were blasted away by the impact while Tang Wuling remained standing at the same spot. It was precisely then that his gaze changed. He raised his right hand abruptly and a sharp dreadclaw popped out of his index finger. Ding! A crisp sound was heard. A 5-colored, point-like energy twisted and disintegrated. At the same time, a sharp howl was heard. It was precisely the killing Douluo Tong used 5 elements Divine Needle. When Tang Wuling fought against him in the Star Luo Empire back in those days, he almost lost because of the 5 elements Divine Needle. He relied on the time-space reversal to evade it with great effort. He was again startled by it this time just as before. Compared to the past, Tong used 5 elements Divine Needle had turned even more unpredictable. It was almost invisible. Had it not been his powerful divine consciousness, he might not have noticed it. A spear pierced through the sky and arrived with a majestic aura in the meantime. The spear seemed to have traveled across the sky and arrived in front of Tang Wuling in an instant. There was a wisp of shock in Tang Wuling's gaze. The golden dragon spear was conjured and his left foot took a half step back as he cautiously made an upward lifting motion with his spear. Ding! A crisp sound was heard. The Skycrosser Divine Spear rebounded. In the next moment, the space surrounding Tang Wuling disintegrated. His entire person vanished into thin air. The next moment he appeared. He was trapped, encircled by the 7 great limit Douluos. The boundless sea Douluo Chenzinji who witnessed the battle blurted out, "That's God rank." Indeed, the Skycrosser Douluo Guan Yue's attack using the spear earlier had achieved God rank. The spear not only attacked Tang Wuling, but it also transported Tang Wuling into the encirclement using its Skycrossing ability. The attack came so unexpectedly that Tang Wuling was tricked. Yuna watched the battle, barely showing any expression. She was aware that Guan Yue had achieved God rank. On the other hand, the divine consciousness which was used to control Guan Yue had surpassed the combined divine consciousness used for the other 6 limit Douluos. In the past, the Skycrosser Douluo did not expect this to happen after he was resurrected. However, he was now astonished to find a feeling of going all out to elevate himself to God rank in his consciousness. At any rate, his God rank was different from Tang Wuling's. His soul power and consciousness had achieved the God's realm but not his physical strength and endurance. Although it was not as comprehensive as Tang Wuling's, it was still a meaningful leap for him. Chapter 1974 Mysterious Heaven Loop. Sometimes, some people are dealt a rotten hand by fate. The sea god Douluo Chenzinji surpassed the Skycrosser Douluo in every way, be it his natural endowment or cultivation period. With luck on his side, the Skycrosser Douluo made significant progress. He made the breakthrough to God rank in a single attempt. In a way, he had achieved the true God realm similar to the Holy Spirit cult's founder, the Demon Empress. He was only lacking in his spiritual power and had not acquired divine consciousness. In that case, a God-ranked Skycrosser Douluo would certainly cause more stress to Tang Wuling than the other limit Douluos. The numerous limit Douluos on the scene had lost count of the number of battles they were involved in previously. Every single one of them wished to attack Tang Wuling when they saw him in the midst of their encirclement. A radiance as white as snow illuminated Tang Wuling's body. He felt he was being sucked into something, not only his body but his divine consciousness as well. Even though his rank was far superior than the radiance, his movement was still curtailed. A bright, round mirror hovered high above the bright mirror Douluo Zhang Guanyu's head. The mirror's radiance flickered and pulsated to guide Tang Wuling. The divine brush Douluo Huanzi moved the divine brush in his hand at full speed to sketch out some outlines in the sky. The lines immediately turned into streams of light rays which shot toward Tang Wuling. Those spears were black as ink. The ferocious wolf Douluo Dongxian had transformed into the ferocious wolf in the meantime. He pounced forward brazenly with his body swelling up to the size of a beast. He charged and collided head-on with Tang Wuling. The killing Douluo Tongyi's entire body was enshrouded in a 5-colored radiance. A huge pentagram pulsated with divine radiance. The 5 elements divine needles shot out silently from the pentagram toward Tang Wuling. The 2 great limit Douluos from the Titan Giant Ape clan each unleashed the Titan Divine Punch simultaneously to blast Tang Wuling from both sides. The Skycrosser Douluo Guan Yue gave out a long, resonant howl. He flew toward Tang Wuling akin to an arrowhead. His entire person exuded a peculiar feeling as he flew toward Tang Wuling. He was traveling through space-time as if he was leaping across the universe. He unleashed the Skycrosser Divine Spear. Tang Wuling was trapped in the encirclement of the 7 great powerhouses which included a God rank powerhouse. Compared to the Shrek 6 monsters and the others earlier, the teamwork of these 7 people was not as good. On the other hand, they relied on their overall strength and power to gain the upper hand. Their attacks had a bigger impact than the earlier battle. Tang Wuling's eyes lit up as he felt the immense pressure. A glistening golden radiance spurted from his eyes. He swung the sea god's trident in his hand and slowly drew an enormous arc in the sky. At this very moment, an illusory shadow appeared vaguely behind him. Yuna and the beast's gazes became fixated when the illusory shadow appeared. Even though the silhouette was quite vague, one could tell from the silhouette's facial features that it was the sea god Tang San's silhouette. For a soul master, the light shadows set off during a battle were representative of the characteristics of the soul master's martial soul. So too the resemblance of the martial soul. The silhouette which appeared behind Tang Wuling was his father's. Did that mean that Tang Wuling was utilizing his father, the sea god Tang San's ability at the moment? The light arc swept past. All the attacks which were within range of the golden halo vanished instantly into nothingness akin to melting snow. The 5 elements divine needles melted away while the ferocious wolf was tossed out by a gush of power. The remaining attacks from the others disappeared without a trace akin to a clay oxen going into the sea. At this very moment, Tang Wuling felt that he had returned to the time when he fought against his father during the sea god's trident examination. It had been extremely arduous for him, but it left a profound impression in his mind. It was also the first time he spent a prolonged period with his father after discovering that his birth father was the sea god, Tang San. Although it was not an enjoyable experience to be beaten by his father day after day, he learned rapidly under his father's tutelage when they sparred with each other every day. It also helped fuse all his abilities as one during this period. Naturally, it felt awful when one did not stand a chance of winning. Yet, not everyone could get more courageous as the battle progressed. However, Tang Wuling remained persistent and endured it. When the long sparring session finally came to an end, he was actually unwilling to let it end. He refused to stop as he did not want to part with his father. If he were pressed to describe how it felt to fight against his father in a battle, he would describe it as perfectly fused with one's wishes. The phrase heavens will would be more appropriate perhaps. Any soul master who had achieved the so-called god rank in his abilities was actually in the realm of being one with heaven. In this case, Tang San was the heaven in Tang Wuling's eyes. Earlier, when he moved the sea god's trident, he had the same feeling whenever his father unleashed an attack. He finally finally realized why he was incapable of resisting his father despite his father's effort to suppress his cultivation base so as to be on par with Tang Wuling. He was precisely the heaven at present. He unleashed the mysterious heaven loop. It was the name that Tang Wuling gave to the mysterious circle. Even if there were a more powerful attack, how could it possibly rival heaven? Heaven was not only a plane, but the power of the universe, which was the universe's maxim. Tang Wuling had lost count of the times he was confronted by his father's mysterious heaven loop. No matter how hard he tried to remember it, he could only comprehend its profundity when his cultivation base achieved god rank. The 7 great limit Douluos fell back simultaneously. Even though they had lost control of their minds, their senses were still intact. They were still capable of sensing danger and avoiding it subconsciously. During that moment earlier, they could sense that they would be under Tang Wuling's control. Had they continued to attack him, they would be thoroughly defeated. Thus, they could only fall back. Meanwhile, everyone watching the battle, including the public on the entire continent, saw the 7 great limit Douluos being blasted away after Tang Wuling, who was clad in a golden battle armor, swung the dazzling sea god's trident in his hand. From their view, Tang Wuling's silhouette was undoubtedly loftier and more majestic. Tang Wuling was all alone when he stood in front of Yuna, the numerous powerhouses, his enemies, and the millions of soul beasts below. He appeared to be so weak in strength, yet in a moment of desperation, he called upon his own strength to turn the tide of the battle. He was like a lonely hero. The Douluo continent had never been a place which advocated individual heroism. The soul masters had their own different duties, and their skills in different areas allowed them to collaborate as a team to express their most powerful fighting capacities collectively. The Shrek 7 monsters from Shrek Academy was one such good example. At the moment, it seems that Tang Wuling was making a reputation. He was all alone, yet he fought with vigor against so many powerhouses. One should realize that every person who faced him currently was a top-ranked powerhouse on the continent today. Tang Wuling did not pursue them. He remained hovering at his position, unleashing the mysterious heaven loop with a pondering gaze. The instant comprehension empowered him to elevate his abilities tremendously. Yuna watched him closely at all times. She could not help exclaiming in her heart after seeing Tang Wuling in his current state. He truly lives up to his name of being the son of the sea god. His comprehension power is definitely not from the Golden Dragon King. If he were to fuse himself fully with the Golden Dragon King's power, and with his lineage as the sea god's son, he'll certainly surpass me in his rank. He'll achieve, at least, a rank 1 godhood in the divine realm. The 7 great limit Douluos backed a few hundred meters away. The scene came to a momentary pause. Due to the mysterious heaven loop, the 7 great limit Douluos did not initiate another offensive. Much to everyone's surprise, they felt as if Tang Wuling had vanished from their perception even though he was just quietly standing there. There was not a single flaw in Tang Wuling. It seemed as if the sky and the land served as the background for him alone. Chapter 1975 10,000 Beasts Surge. Heaven Earth Painting Scroll. He was one step closer to becoming a real god. Tang Wuling was definitely terrifying in his current state. At last, he raised his head slowly and looked toward Yuna with a burning gaze. He appeared to be largely unchanged on the surface, yet the aura that surrounded his body was undergoing unseen transformations. He had metamorphosed. There was a glint in Yuna's eye. She could see that Tang Wuling had metamorphosed. She found that she could not tell the extent of Tang Wuling's elevation, but she could confirm that he was different. Tang Wuling went from being beaten up passively to launching attacks of his own. He took a step forward and arrived before the Skycrosser Douluo Guanyue in an instant. He swung the sea god's trident once again and thrust it forward in the simplest manner without any fancy tricks. The Skycrosser Douluo held the Skycrosser divine spear with his hands and made a lifting motion with the spear. Their actions appeared to be very simple, but they both exuded a feeling of simplifying the complicated. Ding! There was a crisp sound, and Guanyue's entire body shook violently as he stumbled backward, let alone the disparity between his rank and Tang Wuling. There was also the difference in their understanding of heaven and earth that could not be remedied with his cultivation base. This was done out of mercy. Otherwise, one attack from Tang Wuling would have been enough to injure the Skycrosser Douluo severely. The rest of the 6 great limit Douluos finally took action once again. They each displayed their abilities and encircled Tang Wuling. In turn, Tang Wuling adopted a combat technique that appeared to be a feast for the eyes of the onlookers. He held the sea god's trident in his right hand behind him and unleashed the mysterious heaven loop once again. He neutralized all the attacks that came from behind and then blasted the 6 great powerhouses away. Meanwhile, the golden dragon spear appeared in his left hand once again. He swung the spear and thrust it forward, its bright glow pulsating. The spear at 3 feet in length arrived before the stumbling Guanyue instantaneously. There were 7 people encircling Tang Wuling, but to Guanyue, it felt as if he was fighting Tang Wuling alone. Tang Wuling had one hand in front and one against his back. The golden dragon spear was held in front of his body, while Sea God's trident was held behind. Everything was arranged orderly, without anything left to chance. The beast god DTN frowned deeply. At this point, he had realized that the outcome of this battle had already been determined. The 7 great limit Douluos no longer stood any chance of winning. Ding! With another crisp sound, the Skycrosser divine spear shook violently and slammed into Guanyue's chest. The Skycrosser Douluo fell back rapidly. Tang Wuling refused to give him any chances. The first person that he had to finish off was this god rank powerhouse. The spear's radiance pulsated. Another circular arc emerged as Tang Wuling unleashed the mysterious heaven loop once again. After comprehending the true profundity of the mysterious heaven loop, every loop he drew was perfect. This time, the Skycrosser Douluo's entire body was wrapped within the loop completely. He felt as if the sky and earth were spinning around. He lost control of his body as if he had sunk into a puddle of mud. He attempted to unleash the soul power in his body, yet he found that he did not even have the strength to summon his domain. The golden dragon spear's tip struck his helmet. Bang! The Skycrosser Douluo lost consciousness at once. The strength of 4 word battle armor was not enough to withstand a knock from the golden dragon spear. The golden dragon spear in Tang Wuling's hand disappeared. He extended his golden dragon claw and gripped the Skycrosser Douluo in his palm. A gush of god power penetrated the 4 word battle armor straight away and forcibly sealed the Skycrosser Douluo's bloodline. Guanyue was different from the others as he had already achieved god rank. If Tang Wuling did not apply the seal with extra caution, it was highly possible that the seal would break and that would be troublesome. Meanwhile, the 6 limit Douluos behind Tang Wuling had all unleashed their most powerful abilities. The divine brush Douluo Uguanzi leapt higher into the air. He swayed his body and transformed himself into a huge brush. It was his martial soul avatar. At the same time, the battle armor he was wearing had fragmented and transformed into a giant painting scroll over 40 meters in width levitating in the sky. It was a domain without a doubt. However, it was Tang Wuling's first time seeing one as unique as this. Under the close watch of the astonished beasts, the giant brush painted across the long scroll continuously in a projected shadow form. To everyone's surprise, the images took the forms of soul beasts. Every time he finished drawing one, a soul beast would break free from the scroll and charge toward Tang Wuling. Thousands of soul beasts surged toward him in a split second. The 10,000 beasts surge. Heaven Earth Painting Scroll was the divine brush Douluo's trump card. He fused all his powers completely by using his battle armor domain as the painting scroll and his martial soul avatar as the brush. He truly deserved his reputation as being the #1 man in long range combat. The divine brush Douluo Uguanzi enjoyed reading historical records when he was young. He came up with this idea when he read of how mankind resisted the soul beasts, beast tide in ancient times. He was skilled in using his divine brush to draw all sorts of soul beasts to assist him in battle. If that was the case, could he enlarge the drawing so that he could draw out more soul beasts and form them into a ranged attack then? Although the individual fighting capacity would be relatively weaker when the number of soul beasts increased, his attack would be superior thanks to the high numbers. In addition, he came from a military background. In a battle against formidable opponents, an individual's fighting capacity would be frequently affected. Conversely, if the soldiers could form into a team to charge forward, it would turn into a completely different combat technique. The 10,000 beast surge, Heaven Earth Painting Scroll shocked everyone on the scene, let alone everybody else. Even the sea god Douluo Chenzinji, who was also a combat veteran, was witnessing Uguanzi going all out and unleashing such an ability for the first time. Both Chenzinji and Uguanzi were military moguls. Uguanzi was the Central Army Corps regimental commander, so it had been rare for him to actively engage in battles for many years. When Uguanzi elevated his cultivation base to limit Douluo rank, almost no one had ever seen him engaging in a battle. The 10,000 beast surge, Heaven Earth Painting Scroll shocked the entire scene as soon as it was unleashed. Tang Wuling could not help feeling astonished either. The fighting capacity of this supreme commander of the three armies was even more powerful than he had imagined. Had the Abyssal Sage King's abilities not been so terrifying, this particular attack of Guanzi could have had a pretty impressive effect if it had been unleashed on the abyssal creatures. Perhaps if there was any breach that could not be blocked at the time, Guanzi would have appeared there and patched up the breach with the beast tide from the Thousand Beast Surge. The millions of soul beasts on the ground let out loud roars upon seeing the beast tide in the air. This made the beast tide grow even stronger. The rest of the 5 limit Douluos flew up in succession, each taking a stand on the back of a soul beast. They advanced at full speed. Tongyu swayed his body and transformed himself into a stream of 5-colored light that landed on Titan Douluo Yuan and Zenshin's hand by his side. It was a large version of the 5 elements divine needle. It was pointy on both ends and looked rather similar to Tang Wuling's golden dragon spear. The ferocious wolf Douluo had turned himself into a giant wolf and carried the bright mirror Douluo Jiang Wan Yun on his back. The heavenly wild Douluo Yuan Yui was positioned at an even higher altitude. The battle armor on his body changed to unleash its domain. All at once, the entire sky and ground began shaking violently. It was known as the Shock Heaven and Earth Domain. The idea for this domain came from Yuan and Tiandang himself. His domain was different from his father's. The Titan Douluo Yuan and Zenshin, Titan Domain. His Shock Heaven and Earth Domain was aimed at amplifying the Titan Domain. The joint effort of the father and son would result in substantial elevation of their fighting capacity. On the other hand, the modifications of these two great domains were only applied and completed fully after the battle against the Abyssal Plane. Tang Wuling was truly out of luck. Every person's 4-word battle armor was forged through his hard work and effort, yet he did not expect that the incredible powers that he helped to create would be unleashed against him. The beast tide made its way to Tang Wuling's front almost instantaneously. Tang Wuling did not launch an attack right away but raised his head and let out a deafening dragon's roar into the sky. Within the aroused dragon's roar, the 4 great spirit souls emerged in succession behind him. They were Goldsong, the Overlord Dragon, the Damask Tulip, and the Thunderclap Nethervine. Tang Wuling's Golden Dragon King bloodline or burst forth all at once and his incomparably thick blood essence shot out. Chapter 1976 Victory. Again, the 10,000 beast surge had just come within 30 kilometers of him when they were immediately disintegrated by his terrifying blood essence fluctuation and vanished in succession. Although these soul beasts were projected by the divine brush Douluo Guanzi, they still originated from their soul beast form. In order to ensure that these soul beasts possessed sufficiently effective abilities, Guanzi had to understand the qualities of soul beasts first during the process of sketching them. Hence, the supreme commander of the 3 armies was also a genuine soul beast specialist. His knowledge of soul beasts had even surpassed the teachers in Shrek Academy. It was also precisely due to this reason that the soul beasts simulated by him were equipped with certain soul beasts characteristics. Under the lashing of the blood essence, the soul beasts disintegrated at once and vanished into the air. A gold red aura filled the air surrounding Tang Wuling's body. Dragon air erupted from his body and spread out for nearly 100 meters. Buzz. Yuan and Zenshin leapt into the sky. Thick, heavy, dark yellow radiance glowed around his body. His Titan domain only covered the area around his body and allowed him to instantly trigger the Titan giant ape bloodline completely as if he had returned to the ancient times. Though his height remained at 10 meters, Yuan and Zenshin no longer looked entirely human. He had taken the appearance of a Titan giant ape. He tossed the giant 5 elements divine needle in his hand. The Titan giant ape's terrifying strength combined with the divine needle of the transformed Scaling Douluo. The power of this attack was equal to a strike from the god-ranked Skycrosser Douluo. The loosening of planar suppression benefited these limit Douluo ranked powerhouses immensely. The terrifying, amplified stress swiftly struck Tang Wuling. Tang Wuling had already tossed the Skycrosser Douluo to Chenzinji. The golden dragon spear appeared in his left hand and the sea god's trident in his right once again. He had a super divine weapon in one hand and a divine weapon in the other. Both weapons were glistening with a golden glow. Meanwhile, his entire person was completely immersed in his own world. He swung the sea god's trident forward and golden halos were unleashed in coils. Every halo was an attack of the mysterious heaven loop. This was the true form of the indefinite storm. It was the indefinite storm formed by mysterious heaven loops. The first halo reached the giant 5 elements divine brush first. Golden radiance circulated the area, and it appeared that the giant 5 elements divine needle was about to force its way out of the halo. However, the lighting around it suddenly distorted. Before the giant 5 elements divine brush could react to the situation, it turned around and spun about in the sky as if it was incapable of locating its target. Meanwhile, the halos that came next swarmed through the air. Every halo followed a path and found its target. 3 golden halos landed on the Titan Douluo's body in an incomparably precise manner. The sky and ground shook while Yuan and Tiandang's domain was triggered in an attempt to amplify his father. Nevertheless, all else was nothing before the indefinite storm with the mysterious heaven loop as its core. The disparity created by its absolute rank was on display. Not only them but also the ferocious wolf Douluo Zhongxian and the bright mirror Douluo Jiang Wanyun had launched their most powerful attacks. Yet, all their attacks had vanished into nothingness under the cover of the mysterious heaven loop. Golden halos tightened and seized control of the 5 great limit Douluos in succession. They were pulled closer to Tang Wuling. Only the divine brush Douluo Guanzi remained in the distance. He was still unleashing the 10,000 beast surge to continue his attacks. The treatment given to the 6 Shrek monsters earlier had also been applied to the 5 great limit Douluos. Tang Wuling unleashed the Thunderclap Nethervine and the Thunder God's whip. Even the 4-word battle armor could not withstand the Thunder God's whip that released the elemental calamity. The limit Douluos were struck and blasted away by the impact. Tang Wuling's movements could only be described as natural and smooth as floating clouds and flowing water. The numerous limit Douluos were sent to Long Yeyu, Chenzinji, Zhangxian, and Cao Daj's side where they were controlled by them using soul power. The 10,000 beasts continued charging, but anyone could tell that the battle had already ended. Tang Wuling walked out step by step toward the 10,000 beast surge. The dragon hair took on a pyramid shape and followed him as he stepped forward in the sky. The 10,000 beasts dashed at his sides, but they did not manage to hinder him whatsoever. It felt as if this scene was telling the beasts and the millions of soul beasts on the ground that they were far from stopping Tang Wuling's advancing footsteps. Ditian turned his head to glance at Gu Yuna. He wanted to say something, yet he swallowed the words that were on the tip of his tongue. Gu Yuna appeared to be calm as before. She showed a little reaction after witnessing Tang Wuling take away the human powerhouses. At last, Tang Wuling made his way to the front of the Heaven Earth painting scroll. When he stood in front of the Heaven Earth painting scroll, he could not help exclaiming emotionally to himself, "How did he come up with this?" This was a very interesting aspect of the Soul Master's world. Techniques were conceived through one's wild imagination. He had no choice but to acknowledge that the divine brush Douluo was simply a genius. End this. Tang Wuling raised his hand and made a grasping gesture toward the scroll. The countless soul beasts in the surroundings charged toward him immediately. However, these soul beasts with individual fighting capacity were of no consequence to Tang Wuling and only ended up being disintegrated by the dragon air. They were incapable of stopping his grasping palm. The golden dragon claw gripped the divine brush's body as it flickered in an almost illusionary state. Tang Wuling unleashed forbid all laws. Dragon Emperor break. All the projected drawings were disintegrated by the dragon Emperor break in succession. With the divine brush in his grasp, the electricity combined with elemental lightning calamity instantly infused into it. Immediately, the divine brush Douluo Guanzi returned to his human form, removing himself from his martial soul avatar. Tang Wuling was stunned for a moment because he discovered that the divine brush Douluo was already frothing at the mouth from the electrocution. Tang Wuling had only just realized that the divine brush Douluo had turned his battle armor into the painting scroll, so it was no longer protecting him. Tang Wuling had forgotten about that. Hence, the electrocution had left Guanzi in a rather pitiful state. Tang Wuling retracted his power in time. He slowly infused his soul power into Guanzi's body to straighten out his bloodline so that he would not leave behind any complications. The wings on Tang Wuling's back flapped and carried him to the front of the sea god Douluo Chenzinji as if he was traveling through space-time and passed Guanzi to him. The battle had ended. The entire scene was deadly silent. When Tang Wuling was walking into the 10,000 beasts surge step by step and let out the deafening dragons roar over and over again, he was not only terrifying the 10,000 soul beasts in the sky but also the millions among the soul beast legion on the ground. The tremendous stress exerted on the millions of soul beasts' bloodlines faded their ferocity and majesty. The soul beasts with weaker cultivation bases were already lying on the ground and trembling profusely. This was the real dragon might. It was the dragon might that belonged to the golden dragon king. The golden dragon king had not only inherited the dragon god's negative emotions but also the dragon god's blood essence, arrogance, and his magnificent dominance. In a sense, Tang Wuling had largely become the golden dragon king when he stepped into god rank and broke the 16th seal. Though he lacked the golden dragon king's aggression, the stress he exerted over the soul beasts was even greater than Gu Yuna's. The second round had ended. The sound of people's cheering voices echoed through the vault of heaven from mankind's cities in the distance. What does it mean to be a hero? This is a hero. Tang Wuling fought against the most formidable powerhouses in mankind's world in 2 consecutive battles. The combination of 8 powerhouses made up of the 6 Shrek monsters in addition to the body Douluo Araheng and the saber god Douluo Sima Jinkai. Their domains had fused marvelously, yet they were still defeated by Tang Wuling. In the second round, Tang Wuling relied on the mysterious heaven-loop skill to suppress the numerous powerhouses despite being trapped in the encirclement of 7 great limit Douluos. He managed to capture all of them in the end. Tang Wuling had captured most of the powerful soul masters under Gu Yuna's control. Without them, the difference between the overall capabilities of the opposing sides was reduced substantially. The disparity between mankind and soul beasts was no longer that huge on the surface. Before Gu Yuna spoke, Tang Wuling stood facing her and said in a deep voice, "I've won this round as well. I choose to remove the third term that you proposed." Chapter 1977 Battle of the Gods. The content of the third term was all mankind's technology must be destroyed completely, especially all the information related to soul weapons. Disassemble all the soul equipment and return mankind's world to its original state. At the same time, all items related to soul technology must be destroyed so that mankind's society will regress. It could be said that this was the most important and crucial of the 5 terms Gu Yuna had proposed. This was the term that would affect humanity the most. The act of destroying all soul technology was the most ruthless method of regressing human civilization. Removing this term would probably mean that soul beasts would not be able to dominate humans as they had before. Hence, Tang Wuling's eyes were ablaze as he looked toward Gu Yuna and waited for her response to his words. Gu Yuna flew out from her side, and the atmosphere of the entire battlefield became tense. Meanwhile, even the common people were feeling extremely nervous. This was because everyone knew that Gu Yuna and Tang Wuling were the most formidable powerhouses in the world. They used to fight side by side and defeated the Abyssal Plane. Not only that, but they were also a couple. Tang Wuling had triumphed over the crowd during the Joust for a Spouse Festival. He professed his love to Gu Yuna in the end, but she had rejected him. Meanwhile, the Abyssal Plane was utterly defeated and the continent appeared to have entered a new era of development heading toward a flourishing future. When Tang Wuling came to the Spirit Pagoda and proposed to Gu Yuna with such a grand, romantic gesture which had been broadcast by a satellite, she rejected him once again. Then, the turn of events that could have been a tremendous tragedy for the entire continent began before everyone's eyes. The relationship between them was so complicated. They were obviously in love and were a couple in the past, yet they had no choice but to take opposing sides. Some of the more radical members of the crowd were cursing at Gu Yuna, but there were some rational people that analyzed the relationship between the Dragon Emperor Douluo and the Silver Dragon Princess. They represented mankind and soul beasts respectively. From the moment Gu Yuna revealed her identity, it signified that they would almost certainly never end up being together. The enmity created by mankind's destruction of the soul beasts could not be smoothened by the love between them. In order to provide adequate living space for her subordinates, Gu Yuna could not possibly compromise at all. In turn, the situation was the same for Tang Wuling. He represented humanity and he was the son of the God King. He was the Sea God's Pavilion Master of Shrek Academy and the Tang Sex Master. He carried such a heavy burden and he was even the most powerful of all the humans. He was the pillar of humanity, and he was the god in the hearts of the Douluo Federation's people. He was confronted by the Soul Beast Legion and the enthralled Soul Masters, and if he were to falter, all of mankind would be destroyed. They represented different interests. Who was right and who was wrong then? Neither was truly correct, for they were coming from different angles. There was a saying that the god of destiny makes a fool of people. They were supposed to be a happy, loving couple, yet they had no choice but to take opposing sides due to their identities. How cruel was that? The people of the Douluo Federation were truly worried that their hero would have a mental breakdown from enduring such immense stress and agony. Nevertheless, Tang Wuling remained strong and determined. He defeated the 15 greatest powerhouses on the entire continent for 2 consecutive rounds. Moreover, he managed to capture all of them and did not cause any harm to them. He used his capabilities to restore the faith in the common people's hearts. It felt as if he was telling them that their guardian had never abandoned them. He was always here with them and would surely persevere until the end. The Golden Dragon Moonsong was going to confront the Silver Dragon Dancing Qilin. The couple that had named their battle armor after each other was going to clash on the battlefield. They were going to be each other's final opponent. No one could imagine how they felt. At that point, no human or any soul beast present was capable of changing the situation taking place before their eyes. The only thing they could do was wait. This inevitable battle would certainly become their final confrontation. All right. Remove the third term, Gu Yuna said nonchalantly. Under ordinary circumstances, the beasts would have reacted to this. This time, even the beast god Yutine was silent as a cold cicada. He dared not make a sound at all. The beasts could sense that beneath her calm facade, there was an emotional volcano in Gu Yuna's heart that could possibly erupt at any moment. Whoever had the audacity to query her at this time would undoubtedly trigger it instantaneously. They could only wait. The soul beasts and the human beings had no other choice. The outcome of this battle would determine the fate of the entire Douluo continent. It would also decide the final ending for this couple. Perhaps, only one of the two would survive. On the other hand, it was possible that whoever lived would feel greater pain than the one who died. In any case, it was impossible for them to cower anymore. They could only face the final battle and confront each other. Thank you. Tang Wuling nodded at Gu Yuna with some difficulty, but something crystal clear and sparkling had emerged in his eyes. It felt as if Gu Yuna standing before him was gradually shrinking back to the moment when they first met. She shrunk to the size when they first met each other as an innocent boy and girl. A little girl was squatting down near the roadside. She was slightly shorter than him with a head of short silver hair. The sunlight had reflected off it, creating a silver flash and attracting Tang Wuling's attention. It was as if there was some sort of profound attraction between the two of them. The young girl raised her head and returned his gaze. She wore shabby clothes in addition to a dirt-stained face, clearly resembling a little beggar. However, aside from her silver hair, she also had 2 eyes that stood out from the crowd. She had big eyes, with 2 crystal clear amethyst pupils. Even though they were separated by distance, Tang Wuling could see his image reflected in her eyes, naturally long lashes framing them. Tang Wuling's eyes were very pretty, so when he encountered a fellow large-eyed person, he automatically had a favorable impression of her. He had subconsciously stopped walking. 2 pairs of eyes peered into each other as the little girl directly met his gaze with her pretty eyes, somewhat bewildered. She was still Naya at the time. She looked so helpless back then. Tang Wuling could still clearly remember how pretty Naya. She had silver hair and amethyst pupils. The image of her was deeply seared into his memories. From then on, she was his sister. Gu Yuna was looking back at Tang Wuling as well. In her eyes, the hero that represented all mankind and the god that represented Shrek Academy, Tang Sect and humanity was also shrinking. Tang Wuling had no idea that the Gu Yuna standing before him was no longer Gu Yue nor Naya. This was because from the day she rejected his marriage proposal and took the ring, she never removed the ring from her finger. She had completely fused with Naya over the previous few days. She was Gu Yuna, the perfect fusion of Gu Yue and Naya. In her heart, all their memories had fused together. In her heart, he was her lover and brother. Little girl, where are your parents? Right at that moment, several young delinquents surrounded her after being attracted by her silver hair. The little girl avoided their eyes, once again lowering her head. The delinquents shot looks at one another before one of them called out, "Silver hair is really rare. Could you be from one of the other 2 continents? I reckon the market dealers will really like her silver hair and purple eyes." Greed colored their eyes as they nodded towards each other. The youngster who had spoken squatted down. "Hey, little girl. Where's your family?" Without speaking, she shook her lowered head. Beaming with smiles, the youngster said, "Are you hungry? Big brother will bring you to eat some good things. How about it?" The little girl shook her head once again, but much more forcefully. The youngster shot a telling look to his companions before reaching out his hand to pull the little girl's arm, lifting her up against her will. His companions encircled them, obstructing the view of passers-by. Even as the little girl let out a frightened scream, the youngster already had her over his shoulders. "What are you doing?" Right at that moment, a childish voice full of fury called out, giving the youngster and his companions a fright. They couldn't help but reveal resentful faces when they turned around to look. The person who had come to aid the one suffering an injustice was unexpectedly a tiny pretty boy who didn't even reach their waists. The youngster in the back revealed a trace of cruelty. He raised one of his legs and kicked Tang Wuling away. "Brat, you dare to meddle with us." Tang Wuling tumbled and landed a little more than 2 meters away, completely covered in dirt. "You guys are villains." He had rolled on the ground and immediately got up. He charged towards the youngsters in order to bar their way. The youngster who was carrying the little girl exposed a vicious face. The ruckus they had made had already attracted the attention of some pedestrians. After all, this had all occurred on a main street. A cold light flickered from his wrist and a dagger appeared in the youngster's hand. He gestured towards Tang Wuling. "Fuck off if you don't want to die." Tang Wuling stubbornly glared and furiously replied, "Villains won't have a good end. I'm a soul master. I'm not afraid of you. Release her." As he spoke, Tang Wuling lifted his right hand, and a light blue ring of light twinkled. The blue-silver grass appeared in his palm in its waving fashion. A faint energy undulated outward from it. What could rank 3 soul power do? It only made him a bit more powerful than his peers. He didn't have a soul ring to support his soul. His soul was far from being battle-capable. This was also the reason why cultivation was essential to being promoted from the lowest soul scholar rank to the soul master rank. The youngster blanked out for a moment as his companions tugged on his arm. If it was only a regular boy, then they wouldn't have to do anything in particular. They would only have to cover for each other, and there wouldn't be any trouble. But a child that possessed soul power was different. The government maintained special records on these children. Even the Spirit Pagoda had records on these children. If anything happened to these special children, the federal government would definitely expend a lot of resources to search for the cause. What's more, many bystanders had already witnessed their deeds. Such bad luck. The head of the youngsters was unrelenting, but he set the little girl down with an angry growl and quickly left with his companions. The little girl stumbled and fell onto her butt. Seeing this, Tang Wuling hurriedly ran over and crouched beside her. Don't be scared. I'm a man. I'll protect you. The little girl raised her head and looked at him. Up close, those large purple eyes of hers were even prettier. Within her pupils, a layer of mist seemed to have appeared. Don't cry. Don't cry. I've already driven away the villains. My name is Tang Wuling. What's your name? The little girl foolishly stared at him for a moment before finally opening her mouth. My name is Naya. He was so weak at the time. He clearly only possessed rank 3 soul power. Furthermore, he was a soul master with a trash martial soul, the blue silver grass. Even so, it did not make him cower in fear. It allowed him to courageously shield her with his body. He protected her. The sweetest thing she had ever tasted in her entire life were the candies that he bought her with the measly income he earned from learning forging every day. At the time, she was still Naya and she had always known that he could never bring himself to eat the candy himself. He was actually gulping as he watched her eat the candies. He was a good brother. That was the time when she integrated into the human world and took the form of a little girl. However, she sealed her memories due to the problem with her body's endurance. She was Naya, pure and naive, a little human girl. The kind brother left behind an impression that could not be erased in his pure sister's mind. At the time, she picked up an ability known to mankind. It was called love. In turn, the first time Tang Wuling felt heartache was when Naya left. Even when he was laboring painstakingly in his forging studies every day and his body endured such torment at a very young age, he felt hopeful. He watched as his ability gradually increased and his hope brought him joy and happiness. This was because he could feel that he was one step closer to the soul master's world. There was only that very day. Lin Lin. Lin Lin. Lang Yue's anxious voice called out from afar. Mom, I'm over here, Tang Wuling said as he hastily ran out of the little garden. Something's wrong. Naya. She. Lang Yue was panting as she ran over. What happened to Naya? Tang Wuling's heart tensed up. Lang Yue took a deep breath to calm herself before she anxiously said, She's gone. Naya is gone. It was true. Naya was gone. She had only left a letter on her bed. Mum, Dad, big brother, I'll be leaving now. Thank you for taking care of me for these past 2 years. But I remember who I am now. My family has come to pick me up, so I have to go. I was really happy during the days I spent with you all. Extremely happy. I really didn't want to part with you all, but from the memories I've recalled, I know that I must leave. I have many things I must do. Big brother, I will always remember how you looked when you protected me from those bad guys. I will always remember the taste of all the treats you've bought me. Naya, it was also on the same day that she learned another emotion that belonged to mankind. It was known as unwillingness to part. How can this be? Naya, how could you leave like this? How could you? Even if you found your family, you can't leave like this. You can't leave. Tang Wuling turned around and ran out. Lang Yue wasn't able to stop him before he rushed out of the house. Naya. Sobbing screams resounded throughout the small town as Tang Wuling madly ran about, shouting as he searched for Naya's silver hair and violet eyes. Naya tightly held onto a crude rag doll as she leaned against a wall, one teardrop after another dripping down her face. That was the first present Tang Wuling had bought her with his monthly wage. The rag doll had violet eyes and silver hair that Tang Wuling had dyed himself. It looked just like her. Tang Wuling's image unceasingly revolved in her mind. It was only when they were together that both of them were full of smiles. He seemed to have always been thinking of ways to bring a smile to her face. He was always there to protect her when someone tried to bully her. Even if he was facing a powerful bad guy, he would still be as stubborn as before. Big brother. Naya whispered, as pearl-like teardrops fell onto the ground. Perhaps because they were thinking about the same thing or because they had both been brought back to their childhood in that moment. Tears flowed down from their eyes almost in synchronization. They both took a step forward toward one another simultaneously. Dazzling silver color and glistening golden radiance burst forth. The final battle between the golden dragon moon song Tang Wuling and the silver dragon dancing Kilin Du Yuna had finally begun. The silver dragon dancing Kilin Du Yuna still held the silver dragon spear in her hand. Tang Wuling had retracted his sea god's trident, leaving only the golden dragon spear in his grasp. The golden and silver radiance intertwined with one another in the sky with streams of light shooting out from it. Du Yuna had tears in her eyes. When she pointed the silver dragon spear at Tang Wuling, streams of elemental energy surged at once. Chapter 1978 Thought Concretization. A green-colored wind blew toward Tang Wuling and transformed into countless wind blades that burst forth in the sky instantaneously. The splendid green hue made a stretch of jade green space in the sky. Sharp wind blades flew in from all directions. Tang Wuling remembered that the first time he saw Du Yuna utilize the wind attribute attack was also the first time they met each other. At the time, Tang Wuling was still cultivating under the guidance of Wu Zhangkong. Du Yuna missed the enrollment period, so Wu Zhangkong requested that she spar with Shi. She displayed her incredible ability to control 4 elements and defeated Shi easily. At the time, the first element that she utilized was wind. What followed after the wind? It was fire. He unleashed the mysterious heaven loop. The golden dragon spear sketched out a black hole in the sky with an amazing track. It devoured the wind blades that were shooting in from everywhere. Meanwhile, the green color transformed into countless fireballs that exploded loudly in the sky. Violent, booming noises shook everything in the area and burned through the energy in the surroundings. It turned the sky filled with life source into a vacuum instantly. It was exactly the same as the first time she unleashed an attack on him in the past. This was how Tang Wuling felt at the moment. The heat did not cause him any pain, but the tremor that came from all directions felt oppressive. Her control over the elements was so impressive, both when she was still young and weak and at this point when she had recovered the silver dragon king's body. He could still clearly remember the first conversation he had with Du Yue. Du Yue's steps were light and quick. As she reached Tang Wuling, she asked him with curiosity, "Why did you wrap iron chains around your body?" Tang Wuling replied, "To build up my strength. The teacher gave me stricter requirements." "You sure are formidable." Du Yue grinned. "I'm really not that great. None of my elements are even that strong. It was just that I had controlled them well. All martial souls are the same. As long as you have enough soul power and you can fully comprehend as well as control your martial soul well, then it will bring you surprises." Boom. A gigantic fireball exploded in front of Tang Wuling's body. It was a god-ranked divine fire. Slightly distracted, Tang Wuling was blasted back instantly. Du Yuna did not just leave the matter after gaining the upper hand. She pointed the silver dragon spear at him and fired spears of ice spears. Every icy spear was seemingly equipped with the attacking ability of the skycrosser Douluo Guan Yue. The ice spears arrived in front of Tang Wuling's body in a split second and blocked all the paths that he could use to dodge. Tang Wuling shook the golden dragon spear, unleashing thousands of shimmering spears of light. It was the thousand accusing fingers. Every golden spear came into contact with the ice spears in an incredibly precise manner. The ice spears turned into a frosty power and exploded in the sky. It was a magnificent sight. Meanwhile, the powerhouses from both sides retreated into the distance. It was a battle between gods. It was highly possible that their lives would be threatened if they were involved in any way. Silver radiance flickered on Du Yuna's body and she arrived before Tang Wuling in a flash. She had actually passed through the thousand accusing fingers and appeared just a short distance away from him. In fact, she did not even have the space to unleash anything from her silver dragon spear due to the short distance. She raised her left hand and pressed her palm onto Tang Wuling's chest. Tang Wuling countered swiftly. As soon as he saw Du Yuna vanish in the distance, he reacted to the situation. When her palm was about to press onto his chest, Tang Wuling's raised left hand grabbed her hand. Their left hands held one another at that moment. The first feeling experienced by Tang Wuling was how soft and fine her palm was. He could still clearly remember how he held her in his arms not long ago and how he toyed and caressed her fair, long, and slim fingers. She experienced the same momentary trance. His palm was wide and warm. When he grabbed her hand, the golden scales on his palm retracted, leaving only the warm palm. The moment only lasted briefly, but it felt like an eternity for them. All of a sudden, Tang Wuling's eyes caught a glimpse of something that caused him to loosen his grip on Du Yuna's palm ever so slightly. He could clearly see that the dark blue ring was still wrapped around her finger. Thud. Using her energy, Douluo pushed her palm onto Tang Wulin's chest through his grip. The 7 elements exploded. Every attribute complemented and repelled one another to produce a huge explosion in the sky, forming a 7-colored orb of light. Tang Wulin's body was blasted away like a ragdoll. Even as the impact catapulted him backward, the image of the ring wrapped around Yuna's finger was deeply seared into his memory. I can't finish this. You can have it. At this moment, a sound came to him from the side, and then came the appearance of a huge snowy white bun, which was then placed on Tang Wulin's plate. Tang Wulin raised his head and looked. Wasn't it Douluo who gave him this bun? However, she had changed into the academy's uniform and looked similar to the students around her. Thank you. Tang Wulin nodded toward her. He always had the tendency of generating good feelings toward individuals who provided him with food. Douluo nodded toward him and turned to leave. Zhou Sangxi moved toward Tang Wulin mysteriously. Wulin, from my view, hasn't she fallen for you? Today, after joining us in our class, she took the initiative to speak with you. And now, she's even given you a bun. It seems to me that she's smitten with you. It was the first time she treated him well, and she continued to do so from then on. When he thought about it, Tang Wulin felt that his memories of that time were not clear enough. It turned out that they were happiest back then. At the very least, there was no need for them to worry about all that was to come. The pain resulting from the 7-element explosion was not considered overly intense. He had the mighty defense of his 4-word battle armor in addition to the Dragonair's stress reaction. He suddenly found that he enjoyed the feeling of reminiscing about the past while fighting against her. Bits and pieces of their time together surged into his mind. Please allow me to cherish and keep these wonderful memories with me. Yuna could see his trance-like state, so she used the silver dragon spear to stab at him. The golden dragon spear unleashed the mysterious heaven loop once again and neutralized Yuna's attack. Tang Wulin looked at her in a daze as if he was fighting the battle using only his instincts. Yuna felt her heart wrenched in pain without reason when she saw his almost hypnotized gaze. All of a sudden, rage filled her heart. Why? Why is heaven so cruel as to let them fall so deeply in love with one another despite knowing fully well that they will become enemies in the end? 7 elements exploded, and an aroused dragon's roar came from Yuna's back. In an instant, she had transformed into the silver dragon and spat out a mouthful of 7-colored breath at Tang Wulin. When she spat, every human and soul beast floating in the sky sank instantaneously. This was because all the elemental molecules in the air had just been sucked away by Yuna. The people hastily unleashed their soul power in bewilderment. With great effort, they ejected their soul power downward to stabilize their bodies, but they still could not stop their bodies from sinking lower to the ground. The 4 great limit Douluos, Chen Zhenji, Wan Yayu, Zhang Xin, and Cao Daja, were in a flurry because they were still carrying more than 10 soul masters with them that had been electrocuted by Tang Wulin earlier. They just managed to maneuver their bodies into landing on the ground. When they raised their heads to look toward the sky, they saw Tang Wulin's body already engulfed by the incomparably rich 7-colored breath. The amorous Douluo Zhang Xin shut his eyes in agony. He had already known that Tang Wulin was utterly incapable of unleashing his abilities on Yuna. Nevertheless, a peculiar scene suddenly emerged. A water ripple-like glow suddenly appeared behind the area enshrouded by the 7-colored breath. The glowing image was extremely bizarre. Gradually, a crystal clear scene was displayed and even voices could be heard coming from it, loud enough that all present could hear it clearly. Chapter 1979 No Regrets. Part 1. Was that thought concretization? It was a replica of Tang Wulin. His eyes were huge, bright, and filled with high spirits, only that he was scruffily dressed at the moment. In the scene, a worn and weary Tang Wulin rushed to the front. His hair was unkempt, and he had a pale pallor on his face. He appeared to be breathing erratically. Where did you run off to? Why did you only come now? The replica of Shishi which appeared younger snapped at him. Tang Wulin grimaced as he answered. It's a long story. Let's compete first. Teacher Wu, I'm able to battle. Wu Zhangkong looked no different from the Wu Zhangkong who was sealed in ice. Wu Zhangkong looked toward him with an expressionless face and nodded his head before speaking to Long Henshu. We've 3 participants from our class. Long Henshu replied. Class 1 from the 1st grade may select 3 students to compete as well. Participants from both classes, please enter. Yue moved toward Tang Wulin's side and whispered. Do you think you can compete? How's your body? While she could see that there was something wrong with Tang Wulin, his body emitted an aura that befuddled her. I'm fine. Tang Wulin regained that grin of confidence from before. Gu Yue nodded her head. Let's win together. Tang Wulin moved to occupy the center position once again. Shishi and Gu Yue were positioned behind him as the trio walked up the stage together. On the other side of the stage were the class 1's 3 students. I'm Zhang Yangxi, said the calm teenager in the center. Wei Zhou we met a while ago. Wei Xiaofeng reached out his hand and stuck out his thumb before slowly twisting his wrist downward, making a provocative move. You. Shishi was infuriated and was about to rush up toward him, but was prevented from doing so by Tang Wulin grabbing his shoulder. Shishi was shocked as he eyed Tang Wulin. This guy's strength had grown again. Wang Jingxi. The wiry student from class 1 introduced himself. Tang Wulin introduced his side. Class 5 from 1st grade. Tang Wulin. Gu Yue, Shishi, the 7-colored light shadow faded. Tang Wulin's body was blasted away. He came to a stop right in front of the scene with water ripples. In the scene, the young Tang Wulin, Shishi, and Gu Yue were ferociously fighting against a few opponents who were slightly more powerful than them. A silver radiance faded. Gu Yuna returned to her human form and watched the thought concretization displayed before her. Her gaze was fixated for a moment. However, she did not stop but charged toward Tang Wulin once again with the silver dragon spear in her hand in the next moment. Meanwhile, a faint layer of 7-colored radiance had coated the surface of the golden dragon moon song battle armor cladded to Tang Wulin's body. He looked at Gu Yuna with an especially gentle gaze. His ability to conjure the thought concretization signified that his thoughts at the moment were completely immersed at a time in the past. It was their childhood. It was their childhood before they entered Shrek Academy. It was precisely the time that they were together. They had intimate affection for one another since their childhood. The golden dragon spear was used to sketch a circle. The mysterious heaven loop appeared once again to repel Gu Yuna's incomparably powerful elemental attacks. Tang Wulin's body retreated in a manner as if he was dodging the attacks, while the thought concretization behind him changed once again. They appeared to have grown a little older in the scene. Instead of Wu Zhangkong, 4 people sat in the room, one of whom was an unfamiliar white-haired woman. You're finally awake. Shishi leapt toward him. So I woke up in time? Shishi grumbled. What do you mean in time? We're already late. Huh? Tang Wulin was shocked. Let's go. Shen Yu stood up, giving Tang Wulin a meaningful look before leaving. Xu Shaoan and Gu Yue also got up, the former beaming at him while the latter had an apathetic expression. Her eyes were far more expressive with concern lingering in its depths. Tang Wulin nodded to them, then turned to Shishi. Who's she? Shishi replied. She's a friend of Teacher Wu from Shrek. We're already 3 hours late. Teacher Wu's helping out at the academy right now, so we need to hurry over. Otherwise, we may miss our chance. I'm sorry. This is all my fault. Shishi chuckled. What's the point in talking about it now? When you protected us at the forefront all those times, have we ever said thanks? How's your body? How did your deep meditation go? Unable to tell Shishi about his seals, Tang Wulin could only smile bitterly and said, I don't know either, but I feel great. He realized that, apart from feeling hungry, he was in good condition. Strength surged through his body, his soul power having grown. He estimated that it was around rank 27 or rank 28 now. Just like the first time, his soul power had not increased much. Though hunger still clouded his mind, he sensed that his body had strengthened by a third. Considering his immense physical power, it was a tremendous improvement. What he truly looked forward to, however, was how his bloodline power had evolved, as well as the surprise old Tang spoke of. But now was not the time to test it out. In fact, he didn't even have time to eat. Do you have anything to eat? Tang Wulin asked Shishi. Shishi shook his head. At that moment, Gu Yue held out a bag to Tang Wulin. He accepted the bag, immediately knowing what it was just by the weight and feel of it. It was steamed buns and meat. They weren't spectacular, but they were better than nothing. He didn't thank Gu Yue. Although they had grown estranged in the past 3 years, experiencing life or death situations together was a bond that would never break. Saying thanks was not needed in such trivial matters. It was 3 steamed buns and a portion of meat. They didn't smell particularly appetizing, but desperate times called for desperate measures. Gu Yuna's attack was launched once again. However, she managed to watch this particular scene where she had begun to unleash the attack earlier. Obviously, she remembered when the incident took place. It happened when they were taking the entrance examinations to Shrek Academy in the past. They were late to the examination because Tang Wulin was making a breakthrough to the second layer of the Golden Dragon King seal at the time. Everybody had waited for him until he woke up. Fortunately, he managed managed to wake up in time, albeit he was running a little late. They managed to take the examination in time anyhow. The scene switched over once again. In the scene, they had arrived in front of Shrek Academy. When the Shrek city was displayed in the scene showing the prior Shrek Academy, Yuna was not the only person affected emotionally. The light dark Douluo, who could not stop herself from shivering, was also affected. That was the prior Shrek. The glory of Shrek Academy for 20,000 years was all there. That's enough. Yuna suddenly shouted aloud. The silver dragon spear in her hand glowed brightly and unleashed a seven-colored rainbow-like radiance which swept toward Tang Wuling. On the other hand, her resounding shout seemed to have jolted Tang Wuling from his thoughts. The scene behind him evaporated. His gaze regained its brightness and clarity once again. The wonderful memories lessened the agony in his heart at this precise moment. He swung the golden dragon spear forward, and an indomitable aura burst forth from the spear instantly. He unleashed the forbid commonplace, Dragon Emperor charge. The powerful golden dragon king's blood essence collided into the seven-colored radiance. Light rays dissipated everywhere, while the color of the sky and ground changed drastically. The distance between them narrowed. Tang Wuling stared at Yuna with golden radiance circulating in his eyes. He had no intention to dodge nor retreat. Yuna saw the quizzical look in his gaze. Have you forgotten everything that happened before? Forgotten? How could she possibly have forgotten? The wonderful time in Shrek Academy could be described as the most memorable period for her after she became a human. Boom. Finally, they collided into one another. At this precise moment, the entire sky became distorted with more changes taking place and an even more powerful thought concretization appeared. The gigantic scene, which spanned over a few kilometers in length displaying the prior Shrek Academy, occupied everyone's sight akin to a reflection. Inside the majestic Shrek city was Shrek Academy with its lush greeneries and the blue sea god lake. They looked so familiar, yet so far away. In the meantime, the lighting on the scene became dark. The scene zoomed in and focused on the blue sea god's lake. With the illumination and magnification of the overall scene, one could clearly see everything that was happening on the lake surface. Two groups of people were standing, with a group on each side, on the sea god lake's surface at the moment. It was the Sea Gods' Fated Date Festival. It was the Fated Date Festival, meant for the students in the prior Shrek Academy, which attracted everyone's attention. The Sea Gods' Fated Date Festival had produced countless couples. In the past, the Holy Ice Douluo Huo Yuao and the Dragon Butterfly Douluo Tang Wukong got together through this festival. Later, Huo Yuao founded the Spirit Pagoda. In one particular year, the Sea Gods' Fated Date Festival's couple of the year were the owners of the Golden Dragon Moon Song and the Silver Dragon Dancing Keelin, who were now fighting in the air. It was the year which left behind the deepest memories in them. Their silhouettes vanished completely when the scene appeared in the sky. It seemed like they were fused into the memories. The Love at Second Sight segment continues. The next one is Tang Yumeng paused slightly. Then, her gaze fell on Tang Wuling. Number 51. Please. The lotus leaf beneath his feet floated. Tang Wuling's heart began to beat faster. It had been 3 years. A full 3 years. They had been apart for more than 1,000 days and nights. Finally, they were able to meet again. She's grown up, so have I. We are finally not kids anymore. We're adults now. More than 1,000 days and nights. Throughout those dry and busy days, I've taken a good look at my own heart. For more than 1,000 days and nights, I wonder if you've ever thought of me. You didn't keep a light burning for me. Is it because you've forgotten about me? Even so, I'll not give up. I'll never give up. On the opposite side, a pair of beautiful eyes stared at him, the most handsome young man in the entire venue. Number 18's gaze bored at him. Number 17 raised her head without anyone noticing. Yuna was so excited and jubilant that she seemed ready to dash forth from her lotus leaf at any moment. There was also Yuan and Yui and New Zealand. They, too, were looking at him. Everyone was looking forward to hearing what he was about to say. Due to certain reasons, I've been away for 3 years. During this 1,000 days and nights, I've missed the academy every moment. Ever since the sudden departure of my parents, this place has been my home. Today, I've returned. I've come at just the right time for the Sea God Fated Date Festival. I did not hesitate to come immediately because I was afraid that I would miss the opportunity. More than that, I was afraid that you would have fallen in love with someone else. 3 years ago, I asked you if you got close to me only because of my bloodline. During those dry days, I've given it a lot of thought. I thought that I was very stupid to have asked you that question back then. I shouldn't have asked it in the first place. You've given me a sure answer, and that made me sad. I was sadder when I knew that I had a good-for-nothing martial soul and a defective spirit soul. However, I couldn't let it show. Because I was the captain, I couldn't let anyone see the weak side of me. I've tried very hard to bear the pain in my heart. I led the team in the competition until we obtained the final victory. However, even then, I didn't know how I could face you, or perhaps, how I could face myself. More than 3 years have passed. During these 1,000 days and nights, I've thought about many things. Many things which I didn't understand in the past have all been made clear to me now. Why should I care so much about other things if I like someone? Regardless of the reason you and I met. Regardless of how we came to know each other. Since I like you, I'm willing to accept everything about you. If you like me too, we'll be together then. If you don't like me, then I'll do all that I can to make you like me, and we'll still be together. That's why, no matter what, with regard to this relationship of ours, I'll never give up. From today on, I'm yours and you must be responsible for me. The scene faded, turning illusory, then it became focused once again. Tang Yumeng said, the date festival is past the halfway mark, but I have to say the climax is only about to begin. All the boys, you better start saying your prayers now. In the fourth segment, it'll be decided if you've the opportunity to bring home a beauty. Lan Muzi nodded. Yes, what's about to begin will be the most exciting moment in the Sea God Lake Date Festival. The fourth segment, destined for 3 reincarnations, will account for at least 70% of the final outcome. So, I want to remind all the Sea Gods, fair maidens, that you must pick carefully, because once you've made your choice, you can't change it anymore. That's why you must be wise and listen mindfully to your heart and not be hasty with your decision, which you'll regret for the rest of your life. The girls had different expressions, but they were beginning to focus their gazes. Lan Muzi looked at female number 17 and 18 who still had their bamboo hats on. He said in a deep voice, up till now, but both of you are the only ones with your veils still on. If you're still unwilling to take them off in this segment, you will not have the chance to take off your bamboo hats ever. So, I implore you to decide carefully. Also, because of your outstanding performances in protecting your veils, if you remove your veils now, you'll have priority in the fourth segment. I'll give both of you a minute to consider this. I'll remove mine. A crisp and pleasing voice sounded across the entire Sea God Lake. The one who spoke was female number 18. She raised her hand and removed the bamboo hat with its veil from her head. A beautiful, flawless face was revealed. Her long silver hair hung loosely and her purple eyes looked like purple crystals. Silver hair and purple eyes. Even the shine of the moon and the stars paled in comparison to her perfect looks. On Sea God Lake's surface, the reflected light seemed to enhance her ravishing beauty this instant. Everyone's gaze was upon her. Dragon Spear Goddess. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.